evening. I am Roberta Steiner, the moderator for this evening's forum. My colleague, Nancy Tudor, will be co-moderating this evening. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. We put the emphasis on voting. We do not endorse candidates or political parties. This evening, we will give you an opportunity to gather information about the candidates for Family Court Judge, Schenectady County Legislator, Mayor, and City Council to help you make voting decisions. All of the candidates who will be on the ballot November 7th have been invited to this evening's forum. The League's policy is that candidates running for office unopposed cannot take part in the formal part of the forum. Richard Pattern and Richard Russo are running for 2 seats on the county legislature in District 1, which means they are running unopposed. Is Mr. Pattern here? Please stand up so people can see who you are. Mr. Pattern is here. And Mr. Russo here? No. Okay.
Oh, here he is.
Gary Hughes and Habib Samuel are running for 2 seats on the county legislature in District 2, which means they are also running unopposed. Mr. Hughes, would you stand, please, if you are here? Mr. Samuel, would you stand? Also, Kevin Burke is running for Family Court unopposed. Mr. Burke, are you here? Mr. Russo is here, running unopposed. Okay. Is Mr. Burke here? Okay. We've allowed time at the end of the forum for Mr. Pattern, Mr. Russo, Mr. Hughes, Mr. Samuel, and Mr. Burke to speak individually to those of you who are in attendance. These candidates are serving our community and participating in the democratic process by their willingness to run for office. We have some ground rules. We ask that no campaign signs, swag, or literature be visible or distributed in this room. There is a table right outside for literature. There is also information about the League of Women Voters on the table outside. Please take a look. No recording or pictures are allowed unless authorized by the League. Any use of authorized recording requires advanced approval of the League of Women Voters. Please silence your cell phones for the duration of the forum. You are welcome to submit written questions on the cards that have been distributed. And a lot of you, we have an usher over there who will collect them, just sort of wave them in the air, and another usher on this side. We will collect them and then ask them during the question and answer period. Please indicate what office the questions are directed to. Questions should be suitable for all the candidates for that office to answer. And please hold up your cards. Questions will be screened, and questions that are unclear, hostile, or of a personal nature will not be used. Questions that fall in the same general area may be consolidated in the interest of time, because there's often not enough time to ask all the questions. And please feel free to contact the candidates directly for more information. For each office, candidates will have a 2-minute opening statement, 1 minute to answer each question, and 1 minute closing statement. We have timers who will roll up a yellow card demonstration. See it there? When you have 30 seconds left and a red card, when time is up, you may finish your sentence if it is short. If it's a run-on sentence, we will interrupt you. During questioning time of the forum, the order of candidates will be varied. After each statement or question, please hold your applause until everyone has spoken. And for opening statements, we will begin with Ms. DeToro.
Good evening. My name is Doreen DiToro. 2 years ago, you put your trust in me to represent you on the city council. Now I am seeking re-election, and I'm asking you put your trust in me once again. I don't take your trust for granted, and I have kept my promises to you. In the past 2 years, I have accomplished a great deal helping to continue the Renaissance movement in our city. I've developed and passed legislation and programming on attacking our litter problem, addressed abandoned and blighted properties in our neighborhoods, selling city-owned properties and putting those back on the tax rolls, reducing the burden on our property owners, pushed for new and innovative approaches on enforcing quality of life issues such as loud noise, speeding, and traffic violations. Created neighborhood senior centers which offer weekday meals, services, and socialization programs so seniors in our community can have a meal 5 days a week. I've worked with the Schenectady Police Department to address food insecurities in our city and co-created the Schenectady Shares program, a program working to restock over 20 food pantries throughout Schenectady County. I am committed to working to reduce taxes, making government more efficient, providing funding for meaningful youth activities and summer employment, fully supporting our public safety efforts, and listening and responding to your concerns. I have visited thousands of residents in every neighborhood in our city and will maintain a transparent line of communication with you to build a stronger community for all residents. Partner with me and I will continue to be your voice on the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Toro. Mr. Dobbs.
Good evening. My name is Jacob Dobbs. I grew up in Brooklyn. I graduated from St. John's University. And after graduating from St. John's University, I went to Europe as an Army officer. When I came home from Europe, I got a job with the New York State Commission of Corrections, and then after that, the New York State Department of Corrections. And while I was working, I was still working as an Army officer. I commanded a combat engineer unit on Hillside Ave. Then I went to Fort Drum, New York, where I was chief of range operations. And then during Desert Shield, I worked in Fort Devens, Massachusetts as an action officer. And I wrote the plans to bring the troops home and all the logistics that go with it. I want to bring unanimity to the City Council. Unanimity is when everybody acts on one accord and we focus on the needs of the people. And that is my desire when elected as a member of the City Council, to bring unanimity to the council and work for the best interests of the people of Schenectady. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbs. Ms. Hayes.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Hayes, and I was born and raised here in the city of Schenectady. It's been my hometown. I love this city. I've lived other places for my job at Conduin and AT&T and all that other places that I've worked over the years. I feel that there's been some good and some bad things done here in the city, and I want to be able to bring the city back to the way it was when I was growing up. Neighborhoods where people want to sit on their porches and gossip with other people who want to be able to walk the streets and have a good time. I want to bring small businesses back into neighborhoods if we can. And I want Schenectady to be a great place where young people will come in and say, I want to raise my kids here. So that's why I'm running for city council. Like I said, I'm born and raised here in the city, and I absolutely love my city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Ms. Patrick.
Good evening. I'm Carmel Patrick, and I'm running for my second term on the Schenectady City Council. I'm proud of the work that I've done during my first term on City Council. I've concentrated on revitalizing our neighborhoods, supporting public safety, and helping find solutions for the problems that our residents face every day. I've collaborated with Mayor McCarthy and my colleagues to spur historic investments in neighborhood parks and at the municipal golf course. I've helped expand the property tax base through $6.6 million in sales of city-owned properties, resulting in decreased neighborhood blight. And I co-sponsored the It Starts With Me anti-litter campaign and the Schenectady Social Club's 3 new senior meal programs. For 40 years, I've worked in the Capital Region as an educator and a nonprofit fundraising manager. Thanks to these professional roles, I've built strong working relationships with many leaders in the private and public sectors. I'm grateful to Capital Women New York and Eleanor's Legacy for their endorsements of my reelection. It means a lot to me to have these organizations recognize my commitment to their issues, the issues that drive their missions. It's always been important to me to not just reside in a place, but to actively volunteer in helping my community grow and flourish. I've been president of the Library Board of Trustees and the Schenectady Rotary Club. Currently, I serve on those boards as well as on the school district's Community Schools Advisory Board. I'm especially proud to chair Schenectady Shares, a volunteer initiative that collects food and personal hygiene products to restock county food pantries. All of these experiences have given me a unique perspective in my first term on the Schenectady City Council and will continue to inform my decisions in a second term.
Thank you, Ms. Patrick. Mr. Williams.
Good evening. My name is Councilman Carl Williams, and I consider myself to be a true son of Schenectady. Whenever I speak, I always address the love and support I have for my wife at home, Michaela, and our two loving daughters, Zariah and Malia. In 2021, when I decided to run for election successfully, I ran on understanding and recognizing that coming to this table requires recognizing that it's not as simple as just having a conversation with 6 other people. In 2022, I ran on stepping into a more active voice, and part of that was supporting our youth that I've done actively by volunteering at local elementary school career days and also mentoring our high school students, but also most importantly, investing our ARPA funds into our seat center, our social enterprise and training, and also into our Safe Inc. Also, I supported our homeowners by ensuring that recent increases with water fees were minimal and that we've decided not to increase garbage fees. I've supported our country, myself, a 13-year veteran in the New York Air National Guard, but also I advocated for increasing funding to our local veteran agencies. I've supported our city staff by deciding to expand residency requirements that will often open the candidacy pools to ensure that they are staffed appropriately. And I also support the investments that our law enforcement are making into ensuring that community policing, but also smarter technologies are used to make sure that we can stay ahead of the curve. As we continue to address issues related to cannabis zoning, speeding, and also housing concerns, ensure that my independent thinking and objectivity will reflect to the community someone that is both grounded and prepared to do this work. Having sound leadership matters, and having people that are active and willing to work together is further important. And that is why I'm seeking a second term in office, and I'm excited to continue the work that we have done so actively.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Now we will begin with the questions.
Okay, so we're going to start with Mr. Dobbs. What would you do to reduce the growing nuisance of illegal firearms?
That's an excellent question. I'd work with the police department, the local police and the county sheriffs and the state police, and create a plan to stem that tide.
Thank you. Ms. Hayes?
You'd have to really see the statistics, see what's going on, how to do it, where they're coming from. You would work closely with the local and state authorities, also the firearms, the federal authorities also on it. You would need to develop a plan, get funding for it, and then implant it and make it work in the city. It's a tough call because you can come in with a gun in the trunk of a car and there's nobody to stop anything. So we'll do what we can do.
Thank you. Ms. Patrick?
Yes, I have a lot of faith in our Schenectady City Police Department, and I've been a big advocate for the work that they do. And they work very closely. They have a team of federal task force members that work on these kinds of issues. Violent crime has been down in the city, and I would continue to support them in the efforts that they're doing to make sure that our streets remain safe.
Thank you. Mr. Williams?
Thank you. So a lot of it is relying heavily on our police department, but also the neighborhood prevention programs that currently exist. I would be remiss if I did not highlight the accolades that Lieutenant Masheron and Sergeant Mannix do by just being present. And I think that is a nice starting point. As I previously mentioned related to community policing, it is not just responding, but also identifying what some of these socioeconomic factors are that provide an individual the outcome to want to pursue these types of illicit responses. So I think collaboratively looking at why people are functioning with this philosophy of resorting to violence, understanding how we put in place proper programs to assist with housing, but also employment and other support services, I think will remove the need to have to resort to those types of responses.
And Ms. DeToro?
Thank you. So again, I would always reach out to our police department who do work closely with the ATF. I really like the buyback system of people being able to turn in their weapons or weapons that they have around the house or illegal weapons that are found. So I'm really a proponent of that. And again, outreach, I guess, would work as far as the officers on the street, gaining the trust of the individuals. They're out in the community all the time. We have a magnificent accredited police department. So again, I would look to them for support.
Moving on to the next question. As you've gone door to door, what are the 3 top issues you've had the citizens of the city of Schenectady bring up in the conversation? And we will begin with Ms. Hayes.
Speeding on the streets, noise volume, the parties that go on all hours of the day and night, and trash. Trash is a big thing on all 3 of them. But those are the needs of the community. Wherever I go, that's the first thing I hear. There's other things on top of that, but they're looking for a resolution of stopping the speeding as much as possible. I know there are plans in the works to try and do that. We need to do that in all neighborhoods, not just certain areas of the city. And the other thing is the trash. We need to be able to pick up trash constantly and keep our streets and our sidewalks clear so that people can walk and be able to use what's available to them. The noise, we have to enforce the parties that go on at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning in the cars with the driving and the loud music. That has to be able to stop.
Thank you. Ms. Patrick.
I'd say these day-to-day concerns, such as, speeding and the traffic concerns are definitely the #1 issue that all of us are hearing from our residents several times a week. We get calls and emails from folks that are concerned about those things, and we're working on trying to put into place traffic calming measures that might help alleviate those issues. Also, the infrastructure. In terms of roads, in terms of sidewalks, those are the other issues that we hear a great deal about. Other than that, yes, noise and other types of neighbor-to-neighbor related issues do come up as well. But definitely the traffic concerns are the most frequently heard problem.
Thank you, Ms. Patrick. Mr. Williams.
Yes, so I'd like to lead with definitely we hear that people wish that taxes were lower, but I think focusing on the fact that they have not gone up and consistently we find those reductions, I think it's important to highlight the tutelage of Mayor McCarthy and also our Commissioner of Finance who are also here. It is important to keep that track record. Also, some of the things that I hear, it's also related to speeding. We are actively identifying measures that we can take, but one other factor that I want to mention that was not highlighted is housing. We hear all throughout how our rents are just increasing at an uncontrollable rate. In most instances, my mortgage is significantly less than what people are paying for half the square footage. But also identifying opportunities for home ownership. We do have rehabilitation services that are existing in a number of different areas in our city, but I think it's important to make sure that we prioritize the individuals that live there first instead of outside investors.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Ms. DeToro.
Thank you. So since February, I've visited thousands of people in every neighborhood in the city. And I do want to say speed is a huge factor that I hear from many individuals. And we are implementing, we do have some methods out there with speed bumps, and we are collecting data to try to control and calm the speeding here in the city. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about people's ability and want to break the law. Second is trash. Trash is huge within our city, and loud noises. I would love to see specific officers assigned just to enforce loud noise and resident complaints at some point in our neighborhoods.
Thank you, Mr. Toro. Mr. Dobbs.
Speed is the #1 issue. Another issue that people just talk about is the fact that when they call City Hall, they don't get any answers. People are saying that they want me to be responsive. They want their council people to be responsive to them. And then noise is a major concern. And basically speed, noise, and the fact that another thing they say is when you come to get my vote, are you going to show up after that? Because people say that we knock on their door, we ask them for a vote, and they don't see us again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dobbs.
Okay, next question. How would you address the problem of excessive litter and garbage in our neighborhoods? And we'll start with Ms. Patrick.
Well, again, Ms. DeToro, myself, and our colleague, Mr. Palameni, did put together the It Starts With Me anti-litter campaign. It's a several-page, multi-prong approach that looks at education, looks at businesses, in terms of how we can handle this problem across the city. Also, working with Mayor McCarthy, there's other types of things that are underway to try to look at the larger types of trash that get put out in front of the homes. But we were successful last year. We started with the school district as sort of a lower hanging fruit and worked with several of the administrators at the school district to make sure that we were involving the children in our anti-litter efforts, and coalesced a lot of that around Earth Day. We had lots of different kinds of cleanups. We had wonderful opportunities to visit the classrooms and see that they were signing the pledges and doing different kinds of crafts related to it. We definitely believe that if we start with the children, maybe they'll come home and also work with their parents around that. Oops, sorry.
Mr. Williams.
Yes, so it's important and relevant for us to identify that it's a psychological response. It's different based on where you are in the city, and I think that is a very reasonable identifier. Going through Hamilton Hill and looking at the Union College campus, part of it is what are we willing to accept as a community. I think running for city council, it was understanding, similar to what Mr. Dobbs was saying, showing up recurringly, but also holding voters responsible. You can't just show up every election cycle and think that that is going to be sufficient. It is going to require a collective response to make sure that we address this. We can put out as many trash cans, we can count on as many Earth Days, but we need to collectively make sure that we're responding to this situation more than one time a year. These efforts are very vital and necessary, but I think until we are willing to accept or not accept the conditions of what we're living in, I think that is when we're going to notice improvements.
Thank you. Ms. DeToro.
Thank you. I was very proud to work with my colleagues, Mr. Palamini and Ms. Patrick, in starting the It Starts With Me litter campaign. And I think education, especially with our children, and they can bring it home to their parents. I think it was, they would make little trash bags in school, but it was very important to start with the youth and educate them on littering. Countless times I just see people throwing things out their window. It's just a matter of they just don't care. So by starting with the youth and continuing with the businesses in the city and putting it out there constantly, we're constantly called about different issues in the city, and we do follow up with each individual that calls us. So again, that's it.
Thank you. And Mr. Dobbs.
Yes, starting with the children is first, but then holding landlords accountable, because we have a number of absentee landlords, and they have to be accountable for the way in which their property looks. So we have to work with the children in the schools, the landlords, to make sure that they keep their properties up, because they're responsible for how their property looks.
Thank you. Ms. Hayes.
Again, the kids it's a good start. Also, you need to work with neighborhood associations. You need to work with other organizations that do volunteer work throughout some of the colleges, that the campuses then do things. If you have a sorority, want to do something as a community project, we would engage all of that and bring them in to help do it. And maybe they would get course credit. I don't know. We see what we can do. But the other thing is just, not the huge amount of people that put the trash, the big couches and everything out on the street, and then they don't get picked up. maybe charge and do some fines to the landlords for that type of issues.
Our next question. Before you ran for office, how many times have you attended a city council meeting? And we will begin with Mr. Williams.
Absolutely. I smile because I recognize that you should not be getting ready for these types of opportunities. You should be ready. Moving back to the city, my wife and I actively wanted to be a part of our community and recognize that understanding the functionalities of your local government is a very important way to start being a good citizen. So before I ran for election, I routinely attended city council meetings. I think it would be wrong to put a number on it, but I was a routine visitor, if I would say that, to the point that people assumed that I was a college intern, just based on my age. But very much just sitting around the table and having a discussion is a very elementary way to view what we do. And unless you are there on a routine basis, you are unable to understand just how to conceptualize how to develop an argument, but also to convey it in a way that you can get other people to support it, because an idea in of itself is not effective. You need to put that into implementation, which takes practice.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Toro.
Thank you. So I can honestly say years ago, I used to attend on a quite regular basis before children, and then children came, and then my career came. But I would always tune into the city council meetings to see what was happening, and remained quite active in my Union Triangle neighborhood, in Little Italy neighborhood. So I remained very, very active and was concerned and would reach out to my committee people, my council people, our mayor at the time whenever anything needed to be addressed. And I've done that quite regularly on behalf of individuals in my community.
Thank you, Mr. Toro. Mr. Dobbs.
When I served on the Carver Community Board as first vice president, I was with Joe Allen, and I would go to the city council meetings with Joe and sit there and observe how things were going.
Thank you. Ms. Hayes.
I attended a few. I worked for the phone company, so I worked odd hours all the time. So growing up, I wasn't here to see them. I would watch them on TV. And when I was living out of town in Jersey or other places where I lived, I had them taped up here on my DVR. And when I came home weekends, you'd sit and you'd just sort of binge watch what was going on all the time. And you're going, okay, this is like 2 months ago, it's all south now. But my cousin had a business here in the city, and everybody used to congregate at his house, the councilmen and police and everything. So I always knew what was going on. I always had the in, so to speak. And if somebody said something to me, I could go, hey, could you sort of look at this and see what it is, or give me an answer so I could tell somebody if they asked me the question. So that's basically how it was. But for a lot of years, I wasn't available to go because of my job.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Ms. Patrick.
Yes, I attended every single city council meeting and city council committee meeting in the year prior to my election, and it was really an incredible learning experience, and hearing the issues and understanding what the kinds of things were that city council here was dealing with. Every place I've lived, I've attended council meetings and had relationships with the mayor in terms of being able to advocate and approach our city leaders with the issues that I cared about. And the other piece that I just want to add, especially since so many of our county legislators are here, is that they also knew me as a very familiar face of attending county ledge meetings, in particular in my role here as on the Board of Trustees of the library, and other issues that I've gotten involved with here in Schenectady. They probably are sick of seeing me.
Okay, so our last question. Do you have medical coverage, and who pays for it? Ms. Totoro.
Thank you. So, of course, I'm a small business owner, which I'm very proud of here in the city, and I support a lot of small business owners, and it helps with our economic growth here in the city. So I do have health insurance through the city of Schenectady, and I pay a small portion of the health insurance, whatever is denoted to me. Prior to that, for 30 years since I owned my business, I would pay my own health insurance through New York State of Health. So that's where I get my insurance from. Thank you.
Thank
Well, I retired from the New York State Department of Corrections and Community Service, and I'm also a vet. So I have my Blue Cross Blue Shield, and I'm a vet. I get all my I go to the VA to get my medical coverage.
Thank you. Ms. Hayes?
I'm an office manager for a plumbing company. They pay a small portion, I pay a majority portion of my insurance.
Ms. Patrick?
Yes, I have health insurance. I've always had it since the day I graduated from college. That was definitely number one on the, I've got to get a job and make sure I have health insurance. My health insurance currently is through the city of Schenectady, and I pay for it.
Thank you. And Mr. Davis?
Yes, so I currently get my health insurance from my wife, who is a social worker at Chaumont High School. There will never be a time where my medical coverage trumps what they get through their teachers union. But I also think it's important to just highlight that advocating in numbers matters. And that's why I will always support our local unions, because they make a difference and are truly positioned to account for some of the ailments that are existing, but also to advocate in those greater numbers that allows people to push forth sound narratives. So just to the community, if you have these issues or concerns, gathering your neighborhood residents, coming to us with those petitions, they help push your narratives significantly.
Thank you.
We are now at our closing statements. It will be 1 minute per person, and we will begin with Mr. Dobbs.
Yes, thank you. Yes, again, my name is Jacob Dobbs, and I would like you to vote for me for City Council because I feel that I would bring a unifying voice to the City Council. Thank you.
Ms. Hayes.
My name is Stephanie Hayes, and I'm first time running for City Council, born and bred here in the city of Schenectady. I'm very active in the Ancient Order of Ladies Hibernians. I'm a huge member, 63 years at St. Luke's Church, where I do everything from chief cook and bottle washer, toilet plunger, whatever needs to be done. Mr. Hughes is nodding, he sees me there every week. Yeah, it's what needs to be, and I want to bring some unity and some good things here to the city and try and make the city so that it's more affordable for people to come here and live here and raise their kids here in the city. So I would like your vote in November, and I promise to do the very best that I can do then. Thank you.
Mr. Patrick. Ms. Patrick, sorry.
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to speak with you tonight and ask you to consider me for re-election to a second term on the Schenectady City Council. Lots of folks have asked me why I want to run again, and my answer is the same as it was when I first ran. I know I bring value to my role, and there's lots left to do to help the residents I pledge to support. The first question I ask residents as I campaign throughout Schenectady is, what can I do to help you? What I hear again and again are the quality of life issues that folks deal with every day, and I work hard to help solve their concerns. I believe that during my first term as councilwoman, I proved how much I care about the people of Schenectady. They have learned who I am and what I stand for, and it's been clear that I represent them all. I'm ready again to roll up my sleeves and work hard. I promised to do that in January 2020, and I've kept that promise. Re-elect me to City Council this year, and I'll use the experience and knowledge that I've gained during my first term to work even harder for you over the next 4 years. Thank you.
Yes, so I'd like to first thank our hosts, League of Women's Voters and Open Stage Media, for providing this platform, but also promoting it in multiple different venues for our community members. And I also would like to start with a quote by Douglas Adams: "To give real service, you must add something which cannot be brought, measured with money, and that is sincerity and integrity." These 2 years in office have been very eye-opening. I stand on the accomplishments we're able to achieve, and also I love to hear any feedback. I've always promoted myself as someone that's willing to learn, but also recognizing that within these titles, it requires us to be actionable. Definitely holding that expectation for myself. It's also challenging our community to remain equally committed to seeing this work through. We have those up and down tides of when people come to our council meetings, and I'd like to see those more consistently. But definitely I stand on our accomplishments and look forward to what we can do with a successful election. If you'd like more information on me, you can look up my website at williamsforschenectady.com. Thank you for your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Mr. Toro.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters of Schenectady County and all the attendees here tonight. Thank you. I take pride in knowing that over the past 2 years I have served with compassion and integrity and have brought forth many initiatives that will impact our city for years to come. Schenectady is a powerful, vibrant, electric city, a city that has been pulled itself up and whose future is dependent upon the work we do. The positive changes that have taken place have happened because of committed community members like yourselves and those who you have elected. I am honored to be a part of the continued growth in our city. I love helping our residents with issues they bring forward, aiding them with advice, concern, and support. Thank you for listening this evening, and I ask for your vote on November 7th so that I can continue to serve you for another 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Toro. And now you may report.
We're going to start with the second half of the candidate forum. We have the three mayoral candidates, Mr. McCarthy, Mr. Nelson, and Mr. Barno. And we're going to start with opening statements, and we'll start with Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and thank everyone for joining us. My Republican opponent articulates positions of political convenience. He wants to take over the school district. He wants to immediately hire 50 police officers. He wants to immediately replace all the sidewalks in the city. Hiring 50 police officers quickly adds 10 or 11% to the tax bill. The sidewalk concept increases our property taxes really by about a factor of 5. I'm proud of my record as your mayor. The changes that we have are visible and concrete in our city. We have new waterfront development. It's added $54 million to Schenectady taxpayers in revenue every year. We've created over 1,000 jobs at Rivers Casino alone. New housing, more jobs, continued development downtown, and importantly in our neighborhoods. Today we have $250 million in investment in affordable housing, transforming the neighborhoods in Schenectady. Schenectady has undergone a renaissance during my term as mayor. These extraordinary investments have led to 6 property tax cuts, crime is down, Schenectady is safer, parks and housing are being invested in every neighborhood. And I'm proud of my efforts to negotiate 2 sales tax agreements resulting in an increase of $5.3 million yearly in revenue to the city. Our finances have been stabilized since I took office, and our bond rating has been upgraded. As your mayor, I've led the effort to establish a pro-environmental agenda for Schenectady to fight climate change. These changes did not just happen. It's vision, leadership, and competence that made it happen. They happened because of partnerships with community organizations, Schenectady County, state and federal officials. They happened because of a renewed belief by businesses and property owners and our residents that we need to continue the progress that we've begun. And as your mayor, I will guarantee that Schenectady keeps moving forward. Again, I thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Thank you. Mr. Nelligan?
It's a tale of two cities. We've got waterfront development, we've got downtown development, we've got investment in businesses downtown. What we don't have is the kind of investment we need in our neighborhoods. I've been around the city, since February, as I heard Mr. Toro say that she has been. I see a lot of broken sidewalks. I see a lot of streets in need of repair. Crime was actually up last year. I don't have full statistics for this year, but it was up last year. So it's not the Shangri-La the mayor makes it look out to be. I believe we can do better. I believe I can do better. I believe that the plans I've laid out are realistic. Look, yes, it would cost $3 million to hire 50 police officers. I never said I was going to do it in year one. What would have went a long way towards helping us with that, for example, would be to have not wasted so much of this ARPA money on things that we didn't need to do. When we should have invested in infrastructure, we should have invested in our city workers. Instead, we invested in projects around the city that are of questionable value, in my opinion. So choices are made in budgets. I would make different choices than the mayor's made. I'd be able to continue not only the progress, but make it better. I don't believe we experienced a renaissance. I think we've seen a regional development in one part of the city. There's a lot more of the city than what we've seen the mayor invest in. I'd invest in those parts of the city. There are 2 different cities in operation right now. One in the mayor's rose-colored glasses dreams, and the other in reality. I want to be the mayor of the city in reality.
Thank you. Mr. Varno?
Yes, good evening. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Ed Varno. I'm a lifelong resident of the city and a retired Schenectady firefighter, proud father of 2 and proud grandfather of 2. The Varno family has spent decades serving the residents of Schenectady as firefighters, my father as a former chief, myself and now my son following in our footsteps. Due to my experiences, I am used to getting things done and fighting for Schenectady families. I keep my word. I do not make promises I cannot keep. I am honest and have integrity. As mayor, I want to invest in senior programming. I want to invest in more youth opportunities and activities. I support the enforcement of littering laws, noise ordinance, and speeding and traffic laws. I want abandoned properties addressed and maintained so they aren't neighborhood eyesores. I want to invest in walkable sidewalks. I want a government that empowers all residents. I will fight to keep property taxes in check, bringing forth policies that will increase revenue in the city. I will fill my administration with the best minds, regardless of party affiliation, to ensure we are working for you from day one. I will always be responsive to your communications. Thank you.
We will begin the first question with Mr. Milligan. If you are elected mayor, what is going to be your highest priority?
It's a great question. I think there's a lot of priority to address. For me, because I've heard so much about sidewalks and crime when I've been on the streets, I think I would be sending the council legislation immediately to adopt my sidewalk program. I'd be working to bring code enforcement under the police department that would add 9 new officers to the police department without actually raising a cent in taxes. I would address and bring in my aggressive panhandling proposal that I've brought to the public already, and really do an aggressive forensic audit of the city finances, because we've obviously got a $2.7 million or not 2.7, even bigger deficit coming forward from the mayor's proposal, $7.4 million. So we've got a lot of work to do on the financial side going into 2025. So I'd get a handle on that first. That's an emergency situation.
Thank you, Mr. Milligan. Mr. Varno.
I'm running for mayor because I believe the city is not on the right path. We have a wonderful downtown and harbor, largely benefiting big developers. As a city, we need to do much more to address our neighborhoods and quality of life, cracking down on loud noise and music, littering, loitering, and drug dealing, and so much more. By doing this, we stabilize our neighborhoods. Furthermore, we must market our city. Currently, we do little, relying on the county, who is not doing a very effective job. We must market ourselves to families and professionals and try to attract them here. One of my passions is to provide youth opportunities. I coach Little League Baseball, and I currently work with youth to provide them meaningful, safe activities. And I want to leave a city that will be safe for these children, and a place where they will have a job opportunities when they grow up.
Thank you, Mr. Varno. Mr. McCarthy.
Again, public safety is always the number one issue, so it's continuing to improve upon our police department. The police department, for its first time in history, is accredited. It meets 109 standards set by the State Department of Criminal Justice Services. Our delivery of emergency medical services is second to none. In this fire department, everybody has to have a paramedic certification and maintain it for the duration of their career. We perform things in record amounts of time. If you have an event here, which can be tragic, you're lucky to have it in the city of Schenectady, because the team that we have in place that's able to respond and deal with whatever may come up, and want to continue to focus on that is a continuing number one priority.
Thank you. Next question. If the time comes for budget cuts, where would you cut and why? And we'll start with Mr. Varno.
Well, where do we start? The city clerk's office is not performing up to the data that's out there. And I think it's time that we held our bosses accountable, and those that are doing their job should stay, and those that aren't should be let go. Thank you.
Mr. McCarthy.
Well, it's a negative scenario, which I'm not necessarily going to agree with your premise. that we have to look to continue revenue that is coming in that provides adequate services here. Since I've been mayor, we've focused on delinquent property owners, we've improved tax collection, and how do you look to improve the efficiencies of our operations internally? And we do that every day, whether it's in the finance department, again, within policing, within the paramedic service, which is our big operations, but we look at items within garbage collection, street paving, and other ones where you can, which have done good in the past, is not necessarily the best in the future, and how do you look to improve on that to allow things to be done in a more cost-effective manner?
Mr. Nelligan.
Look, I think it's a good question. I mean, we're heading towards a fiscal cliff of the mayor's making, $7.4 million deficit in 2025. The first thing I would do is get rid of all the stipends for high-paid managers in the city. There shouldn't be bonuses for people who are public servants. People are public servants because they care about the public. They don't deserve large bonuses. That's something, if you want, you should go to the private sector and work there. I'd also look to reduce the number of managers and increase the number of workers on the street. I think we've got to invest in the actual work happening, not in the management of that work. I absolutely would move on from our current situation with a person who can't pass a civil service test, who's running a large department in the city, see if we can find a more cost-efficient way of managing that department with a different manager. So I think there's a lot of places to look, but I also would just go back to that forensic audit. I want a forensic audit immediately. I want to know where every dollar is, every body's buried, and once I find that out, I'm going to figure out where the cut should come. I think people should do this as a matter of having information, not without information.
Our next question will begin with Mr. McCarthy. How will you address concerns regarding transparency, accountability, and accessibility when it comes to elected officials in local government?
Again, we've always been open in Schenectady. I've led in that. We have the opportunity to have open stage media broadcast this. Our city council meetings have been broadcast for, I think, 35 years, 37 years. I was part of the team that took and put in place open stage media. It's a public access station. We moved it from an old format, moved it to Proctor's, where it complements the educational opportunities that are there. If you look at our website, you look at the information that we're putting out, most communities are catching up to Schenectady. They're looking at how we're dealing with it, and we're setting the standards in many areas to provide open and accessible government.
Thank you, Ms. McCarthy. Mr. Nelligan.
Look, I mean, one of the reasons I'm sitting here running for mayor is because when I moved to the city, I had complaints about speeding, I had complaints about snow plowing, I had complaints about sidewalks. I got no response. I know people say that they have responses and that they're accessible, but I have not experienced that myself as a resident of the city. What I experienced was being ignored. I think there's too many people being ignored in the city. When I'm mayor, I'll be an out front mayor, somebody who's out in the community on a constant basis, engaging with people and finding out what they need. In addition to that, I think that we need an ethics reform in this city, the city of Schenectady. The last ethics law was passed in 1973 when I was born. It does not include multi-party appointments. It does not include enforcement mechanisms. It does not include accessibly being able to look at someone's conflicts of interest on an online form, which I would put on the internet, on the city's website for people to look at. That would be for every department head and every elected official. We are actually far behind even the state of New York on these questions, and we really got to catch up.
Thank you. Mr. Varno.
I believe that it's very important for the city government to be clear and clarify their meaning. And as a person, I have, like I said, I have integrity, and I don't make promises I can't keep.
Thank you.
Next question. What are the city's infrastructure priorities for the next 5 years? And we'll start with Mr. Nelligan.
Look, I think the city's infrastructure priorities are clear. I think that, again, to compliment the mayor, I think he's done a nice job on renewable infrastructure and working on accessibility in terms of fighting climate change. I think that's an area of agreement that we have. Sidewalks and roads. Look, sidewalks, roads, and drains. I was just in a community the other day off of Randolph Road where there's a drain pipe that comes from someone's property and dumps water from an aquifer down a hill that is constantly flooding and also freezes in the winter and becomes a dangerous ice skating rink. We have aging infrastructure because it's an older city, but we have to start replacing that infrastructure on a regular basis. When we had $55 million in ARPA money, that's what we should have spent that money on. That infrastructure update was needed. Sidewalks were needed, roads were needed, plumbing was needed. We didn't do it. We wasted the money. That was a huge missed opportunity. I would not miss such an opportunity.
Mr. Barnum.
I have to agree with my partner here next to me, Mr. Nelligan, on infrastructure, the roads, sewers. I know Bellevue, because I live up there, has been torn up for the past year, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. I know NIMO has been part of the problem, up there, getting their gas lines run, and I don't feel that they're doing it in an efficient manner. Thank you.
Mr. McCarthy.
Would continue to build out our infrastructure from our Wi-Fi network. We have made substantial investments in both water and sewer and continue those. We've made investments in wastewater treatment plant, the pump station, North Ferry. It really positions this community for the next 25 years or 50 years, not only for residents, but for economic growth. And so it's how do you continue to build on that base and then do those incremental improvements that we need to do as we go forward.
Our next question will begin with Mr. Varno. What can be done to reduce flood damage in the Stockade and East Front Street neighborhoods?
Well, as I said at the mayor's debate, I think our problem starts upstream with the ice flow, and that's where it should begin, is in repairing it, working with the state and federal government to keep that area open so we don't wind up with the flooding in the Stockade.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy.
Again, working with the Canal Corporation, Army Corps of Engineers, looking at modifications of along water flow there and monitoring water flow in the Mohawk River and the river basin to better manage that, and then also look at modifying the existing dam structures to improve flow for high water events.
Thank you. Mr. Milligan.
Look, we're going to continue to experience these kinds of problems because of climate change. Climate change is driving, more aggressive storms, more bad weather events, and we've got to respond to those things. So there's two ways to look at this and two things we have to do. One, I believe that the city has made good investments in storm hardening and infrastructure along the river. We can continue and we should continue those investments. That's a really important thing that we need to do. Second thing we need to do is keep doing what we have been doing and expand upon it, which is to fight climate change by investing more in renewable energy and more in efficiency. Those two things are really important in driving a reduction in the use of carbon emissions and reducing then the cause of climate change, which is driving the bad weather. So we've got to look at it from a long-term and a short-term perspective, and I would do both.
Next question. What are your views, and we're starting with Mr. McCarthy. What are your views on Schenectady being a sanctuary city?
It's a term that has many meanings to different people. The problem really exists at our borders, that we have to have a comprehensive immigration policy that both Republicans and Democrats have postured in Washington, and it is somewhat of an embarrassment for this country. We want to welcome people here. There has to be a process for them coming in, but there have to be rules in place to allow people to have access to this country and to follow the great opportunities that exist within the United States.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson.
I think it actually has one meaning, and we've seen it in New York City, which is that we allow anybody who wants to come here. We invite them from other states. We tell Texas and other states on the border, come on, send them all here. And then what we do, if we're Mayor Adams, is we then ship them upstate to try to shift his problems to everybody else in the state of New York. I find that, appalling to start with. Secondly, at all levels, let's be really honest, who controls the government at all levels? It's Democrats. Democrats at the state level and Kathy Hochul, Democrats here in the county and the city, Democrats on the federal level with Joe Biden. They're not solving the border crisis. They're the ones that declared sanctuary cities. It wasn't Republicans. In fact, Governor Cuomo signed an order making the state a sanctuary state. So the bottom line is this is a problem caused by Democrats, conceived by Democrats, and not solved by Democrats. As mayor, we will never be a sanctuary city. I will never sign off on any resolution making Schenectady a sanctuary city, ever.
Thank you. Mr. Varno?
It's a hot topic. I believe it starts with the federal government and their open border policy, and it winds up coming down to putting people in cities and in areas, towns that really aren't prepared for this influx of people. So I think it's up to the federal government to get their act together and find the right way for people to come into this country who want to work here, who want to be productive.
Our next question will begin with Mr. Nelligan. How would you address the problem of excessive litter and garbage in our neighborhoods?
It's a really important question. As we heard from the city council candidates, it is one of the big issues that we hear about. Look, I recently hosted a cleanup at Vale Cemetery in Vale Park. Went down there, took some lunches down to folks. We've got, when I talk about a tale of two cities, we've got 200 people living in Vale Cemetery. In tents, living, on benches in Vale Cemetery and Vale Park. When I went down there, one of the things I found most awesome was all these folks said, as soon as I walked, they said, "What are you here to do?" I said, "We're here to clean the park up." And they said, "Give me a rake. I want to help." And so all those folks, there was dozens of folks that helped us clean up the park, clean up the cemetery. But we've got to do more than just one-offs. So I would increase fines for littering. I would engage with, there's companies that use solar compactors that you can put in neighborhoods that would help to not only collect trash, but also to reduce that trash at the same time. I would look into that. And I would absolutely, when it comes to my aggressive panhandling law, the punishment on the aggressive panhandling law would be community service, and community service would mean picking up trash rather than fines.
Mr. Varno?
Quality of life issues such as litter, loitering, will be one of my most important issues as mayor. These issues need to be enforced, and I will ensure they are. By addressing these issues, we will stabilize the neighborhoods from further deterioration and attract people to our city. Enforcement is the key, and we'll have to look into the city code to see if these needs to be strengthened. We must seek to use technology to address some of the issues to not overburden our police department. However, I will also seek to create a special division within this police department to address quality of life issues.
Thank you, Mr. Varno. Mr. McCarthy?
There are not 200 people living in Vale Cemetery. Unfortunately, you had 10 people or so that were in there. We have a hub system in place which puts police, fire, county social service workers, mental health counselors out to engage them and hopefully bring them to a level of stability. Again, the plan that's been moved forward by the city council for outreach, education, under It Starts With Me, is a step in the right direction. But part of it is people have to step up and assume some responsibility on their own to pick up litter in front of their house, in front of their business, and take some of that burden off. You can't expect the city to do everything for everybody in that area.
Thank you.
Next question. And we'll start with Mr. Varno. How do sidewalk replacement plans differ among each of you?
Well, my plan for sidewalks is for the city to take over the responsibility for repairing and replacing sidewalks. To pay for this, a small fee would be introduced and put into a restricted sidewalks fund. Studies show that sidewalks add to property values. The increase in property values would offset the sidewalk fee. Sidewalks last 30 to 40 years, and the sidewalk fund would have more than enough money to be sustainable. Additionally, on streets that are not main streets, I would introduce concrete curbs. The technology for concrete is much superior today, and the city would save money. Concrete curbs are used in major cities in cold climates. If they can be used there, they can be used here. These two initiatives would make our city more walkable and safe.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy?
Again, most of the sidewalks in the city were built under a special assessment program where the property owners actually paid a small fee. Currently, we have about 288 miles of sidewalk and curbs in the city. That's a little over 1.5 million linear feet. February, I asked the city council to put forward, and they did $1.5 million of the ARPA money in a fund for sidewalk replacement, so that, again, neighbors can petition. The city then basically pays for half of the cost of the sidewalk. We've set that fee for the homeowner at $55 a linear foot, and we pick up the remaining cost to replace the sidewalk and then simultaneously look to do the curbs and street surface.
Thank you. Mr. Nelligan?
The question was comparing the plans. I think Mr. Varno wants to put a fee in a special sidewalk assessment district. The mayor has continued with his program, which has not been successful, by the way, in terms of making residents pay for sidewalks and own the sidewalks and impose taxes on themselves to pay for sidewalks. I think both plans are wrong. We were told when the casino money came in, we could get a 10% tax cut. We never got that. What we can do is invest in infrastructure. So what I would do is take half the casino drop, put it into sidewalks, build sidewalks, own sidewalks. Other cities control the sidewalks. Other cities own the sidewalks. There's no reason in Schenectady we shouldn't do the same thing. Sidewalks are not a luxury. Sidewalks are a basic service that the city ought to be delivering and ought to be fixing. And I think that we've been going in the wrong direction on sidewalks, and people want a more walkable community. That's good for our environment. That's good for people's health. I would invest in that. That would be one of my top priorities as mayor.
Thank you. Our next question, and we'll begin with Mr. McCarthy. How would you address the problem of excessive litter and garbage in our neighborhoods?
Didn't we just go over that?
Same question.
Oh, sorry, wrong question.
Thought you were going to.
Fireworks are a growing nuisance. What can be done to reduce use and abuse?
It's a phenomenon where people just make poor choices. We have been more aggressive in our follow-up. Some of our sensors now are acoustic sensors, which allow us to better pinpoint the deployment and then do appropriate enforcement with it. And it's the litter, some of these actions, whether it's speeding, people have to assume some responsibility on their own and have to have their behavior modified so that they're doing the right thing as opposed to the wrong thing.
Thank you. Mr. Nelligan.
I think that all these issues, whether it be noise, fireworks, speeding, are an argument for more police. And honestly, again, I still believe we need to add additional police to our force because we don't have enough police to respond to our level 1 crimes, our level 2 crimes, or level 3 crimes in a reasonable fashion. So the reason that people get away with blowing off fireworks, I've seen it in my own neighborhood, is because the police are tied up with major calls and they don't get to the fireworks call till later. By the time they get there, the fireworks are done being blown off and there's no one getting in trouble for them. So this is a staffing issue from my perspective. We need more police, and the only way you're going to increase enforcement is by having more people to enforce the law. And we're not going to get more people to enforce the law unless we make a strategic effort to get more police on the street. And so that's why, I've made, adding police such a big part of my platform. I think, yes, does it cost money? Yes. We have a $111 million budget or so from what I've heard. So I think in that we can find the money we need to hire the police we need. But the bottom line is the only way we stop this is enforcement, and enforcement is only done by people, and people need to be hired.
Thank you. Mr. Vernon.
My belief with the fireworks is they've been going on for so long that there's no true way to police it. And like Mr. Nelligan said, they're tied up on more important calls, and that's pretty much it. people have to take responsibility.
Okay, thank you. Last question. And we will start with Mr. Nelligan. As the COVID relief funds run out, what are your priorities for meeting the city's fiscal needs?
It's a great question. You know, again, in my mind, we've overspent the bank on COVID. I want to say one thing, a positive thing to the county legislators in the room. Thank you for that rebate check. That $250 I got today, that's going to be put to good use. So thank you so much for that. I wish we had done something like that here in the city to match the county's rebates, by the way, and, you know, by putting money into programs and then freeing up money for a tax rebate from the city. But I'm thankful for that. I think we need to see more of that kind of policy in the county and in the city. When it comes down to my fiscal priorities, look, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I want to get a handle on the full financial picture. We know we have a deficit coming. We know COVID money is going away. We have no idea what the future looks like in terms of federal money. State budget shortfalls are coming this year as well, so we can't count on the state to save us. We're going to have to save ourselves. So what that boils down to is I want to get a clear picture on the entire budget, see what the mayor has done in the past, make the adjustments I think are appropriate to try to solve those problems without raising taxes. But I don't think it's hard to speculate about that, having sight unseen and having seen every specific line in the budget beyond what's been published.
Thank you. Mr. Barna?
Well, seeing as the COVID money's run out, I think we have to pull up our bootstrings and do a better job of accounting for our own money and do a better job at spending what we have, not what we can borrow.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy?
The money that we got under ARPA, people have to remember how we got it. Every Democrat in the U.S. Senate and every Democrat in the House of Representatives voted for it. Mr. Nelligan's team and his people that he looks up to, all the Republicans, they voted against it. We would not have gotten $1 if his team had had their way. We have investments that are in place, that we're using that money. Yes, it's going to run out, but you look at the record that we have in place, that I have, in terms of building economic stability and a broader base here, it positions us for a bright future. And so I look forward to the opportunity to go forward, to work with the partners that I have developed, in the relationship that I've developed, whether it's at the county level, the state level, the federal level, to ensure Schenectady continues to be successful going forward.
Thank you. So last, we're going to end with a 1-minute closing statement, and we will start with Mr. Nelligan.
Thank you. I want to thank the League of Women Voters. I want to thank the people for being here tonight. I really appreciate the questions. There was excellent questions tonight. Thanks so much for submitting them. I thank my opponents for being here and engaging in the debate and the discussion. You've heard the differences tonight. There are bold differences between myself and the mayor. And if you accept his vision, you should vote for him. On the other hand, if you look around the city, you look out your window and see the kind of things I see, then you should vote for me, because the only true aspect of change that's going to happen is if I'm elected mayor in November. Otherwise, we're going to stay in the same path. So if you like the path we're on, vote for Gary. If you don't like the path we're on, as I believe most voters do not, and the people I've met at doors, vote for me. It's that simple. It's a simple choice, a clear choice. I look forward to the voters' decision on November 7th, and I ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Barna?
Yes, I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for having us here tonight. As you saw tonight, I care about this city and its residents. I will not put the interests of big developers first. I will not be a narcissist with unrealistic policies desperate for votes. I will always put you, the residents of Schenectady, first. In the next few years, residents will be facing severe tax increases and/or service cuts due to bad budgeting and misuse of ARPA funds. I will fight to keep property taxes in check, bringing forth policies that will increase revenue in the city. I will fill my administration with the best minds, regardless of party affiliation, to ensure that we are working for you from day one. I will always be responsive to your communications. Our city is on fire, high taxes and crime. I have always run into fires, and now I want to do the same for our city. I am the only valid alternative to the mayor. I ask for your support so together we can work together to save our city and have a prosperous Schenectady for all.
Thank you. Mr. McCarthy?
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank the League for the time and effort that it puts into making this forum possible, and also the work you do every day, and I think it doesn't get enough credit, is improving voter turnout in that education role that you play not only in our community, but through the organization at the state and national level. I've been proud to serve as mayor of this city. I believe that we have a clear and decisive record that's in place. I'm looking for the opportunity to continue that, to serve as your mayor for another 4 years. And if given that opportunity, we're going to continue to build on whether it's the homes program. I'm not going to walk away from the downtown success that we had. It is a success story. I believe my team is in the best position to continue that through the neighborhoods and to build a bright future for Schenectady. And so with that, I ask for your continued support and your friendship, and again, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight.
The League of Women Voters would like to thank the candidates and the audience
Sure.
for coming out, and I want to remind everyone to get out and vote. New York State will have early voting at the following locations: the Honorable Karen B. Johnson Library, Schenectady, South Schenectady Fire Station, Glenville Senior Center, and the Niskuna Town Hall. All voters may vote at any of the early voting locations in Schenectady County. Early voting will take place between October 28th and November 5th. Election day is November 7th. More information is available at the table out in the lobby. Absentee ballots are available for this election. Voters may submit an application for an absentee ballot with the Board of Elections by mail, postmarked no later than Tuesday, October 23rd, or in person at the Board of Elections no later than November 6th. Absentee ballots must be received by the Board of Election by November 7th. Thank you.